What year did you say that?
1970 only.
Oh, that's a late year too.
Mm.
But dude, it was a 4-door with a suicide rear door.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Landau.
A Thunderbird Landau?
Landau AU.
Oh yeah. Wow. Do you think that one could be bought?
I assume everything there could be bought.
If they think that an R107 is worth like $12,000, I mean, some of them are, but hopefully, like that, I would almost hope it doesn't even have a drivetrain in it.
Right.
Like it's just a solid body. Look at how cool that thing is.
And the rear is already like sacked on the ground.
Oh, dude, don't ever wash it.
I know. You never would.
Oh,
never have to.
That thing is amazing.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't really know.
Wow.
And it's got that dumb rag top on the top, but it's fine.
Yeah, but it's got that sweet C-pillar,
I know.
like Thunderbird thing.
Swoosh.
The swoosh. Hey, we're live.
Oh, we're live.
Yeah, I'm recording. Hey, everyone. This is the beginning in episode 1 of the Purpose and Passion podcast. And I've been joking around with a bunch of people that the first, if not the first few episodes of this were going to be like really rough. And Corey and I just recorded an hour of episode 1 and my memory card ran out and my audio recording wasn't quite right. And we basically canned and binned the whole thing. So this is episode 1 to you, but we've literally, we've been sitting here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And this is just the beginning of
just episode 1.2.
Yeah, episode 1, version 2. Well, hey everybody, welcome. Prost, my friend. Cheers. Hey.
Prost.
This is the beginning. We're drinking some of that Stoke chocolate black cold brew. Oh my gosh. I just got Corey in on this and he's hooked immediately. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to listen to us drink coffee for the first 5 minutes of this podcast and never return. But my name is John Ludwick Jr. and this is my buddy Corey Marshall. And most of you guys that are listening to episode 1 as episode 1 is going live know us. And because most of you are friends of ours that are going to be listening to this at the beginning. This has been a long time coming for me. I've wanted to do a podcast for the better half of 4 or 5 years now. I recently, in those years, I started listening to more voice. As I'm sure you as well,
absolutely.
like would rather listen to music. I'd rather listen to music when I was riding BMX, if I was like at a skate park or if I was on a long drive. You know, I was always listening to music. Music, I mean, as a musician myself and you, music moves me and takes me on those like mental journeys, I guess you could say. So I was never interested in listening to somebody talk. Like when I was in my car driving late at night across the country or wherever, or especially riding, I'd rather listen to music that like energized me in a way. Yep. So when I started thinking about starting a podcast, I had never thought, I don't know, I didn't think it was going to gain traction. I didn't really start listening to any until I was on Christian Loza's podcast, How It's Done. And actually you were there for that.
Yep.
Yeah, the first one. That was Christian's second episode and the first podcast I'd ever been on. That was in 2017. And although that was only like 3 years ago now, I started listening to more podcasts and realized like, yeah, I actually like listening to this when I'm working or even when I'm driving, especially a long drive. I start to like listen more to like what they're saying and have my own viewpoints and additional thoughts to what people are saying. So yeah, that's kind of where this all began. This kind of started underneath the Governor's Club, which is an automotive brand that I started in 2011 or 12, basically. And it's just kind of the next step. You know, I've been traveling a bunch and have met a lot of really cool people that have a lot of really cool things to say, that are smarter than me in a whole bunch of different industries and walks of life. And that's kind of where this is going. This is going to be a mobile podcast. I mean, as you know already, I've set this studio up in my house just to kind of have a home base. So when I'm home, I can have, you on and just other friends to talk to while I'm home. But I'm so excited to hit the road with this and get some people lined up. Going to have Josh Garcia on next month. who runs Revival Motoring Podcast. And a lot of you guys that are listening to this at the get-go probably listen to him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And really excited to have Josh on. Josh is a longtime friend of mine. He helped start, if not started himself, Gang Stout back in the day. And in the Northeast, I know a lot of you guys remember Gang Stout. So I really want to talk to him about Gang Stout and how that started. And and then his like kind of hiatus from the automotive industry, and then the beginning of Revival as well. Because not a lot of people got a chance to hear that. You know, I heard that because Josh is a friend of mine,
Right?
but not a lot of people that listen to Revival now like know that Gang Stout was, in my opinion, like crucial in this area. You know, I was like that whole crew of dudes are really good friends of mine, and so yeah, I'm excited to have Josh on. We're headed to Riverside in Chattanooga, Tennessee in March, the weekend after my birthday. We'll be in town for my birthday, which is March 8th in Tennessee. And hopefully going to be sitting down with Mason Gavin, my buddy who puts that show on, for an episode, hopefully episode 3. And probably sitting down with Nikolai from Simply Clean as well, since he'll be in town. And so it'll be really cool to sit down and talk to him about his projects and Simply Clean, and Mason and Riverside and all his projects too. So that's just the beginning of it. And then once we get to Europe later in the year, I'm so excited to sit down with, you know, Jay or Carl from Players, or Bremy from Felgentil. Yeah, there's a lot of people I'm really excited to sit down with. Adam McPeak from ILB Drivers Club.
Definitely. Adam.
They just launched their own podcast as well. So we'll have to creep our way onto their podcast. And like we were talking about before, like all of us friends, like this is what all the other people do that have podcasts. Everybody's like kind of floats between their podcasts and just kind of like talks to each other and hangs out. And what's so crazy is people like, I don't know, like at the beginning, I didn't think anyone would be interested in listening to that, but I don't know. I am now. So
yeah,
it's cool to kind of float around a little bit. Yeah. Excuse me. We're addicted to this coffee. So this is basically just an introduction to the podcast. We're just going to hang out, and even though we just did this, we just sat here for an hour talking about this. I'm not too concerned about regurgitating what we just talked about. We're going to cover the same topics basically, but we're just going to chat about 2020 in general and our plans, projects. We have a lot of Q&As that came in. I put an Instagram story out yesterday asking for some questions so we can involve a lot of you guys into this podcast and basically get, I don't know, like you guys involved to kind of answer some questions that you may have had about myself or Corey and I, the Governor's Club or whatever. We recently embarked back in September on a back-to-back cross-country trip that we covered heavily on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, which you'll be able to check. If you look through the videos on this YouTube channel, you'll see the TGC America Tour episodes. So basically, I had a 1981 BMW E23 735. It was a Euro spec, right-hand drive, UK market car, pre-facelift, you know, the shark nose pre-facelift E23 in Cypress Green, which I'm not sure if we got here in the States in the 7 Series.
I don't think so.
Either way, it's like an amazing color.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, I went through, I did a full BBS kit on it and did the Airlift Performance 3H system on it. So I bagged it and had the height sensors and did a bunch of cool, like little resto mod things too. John DeHate, a friend of mine in Florida, shot it for Performance BMW magazine, and then Cy Gray from England flew over and shot it for Fast Car magazine. So it was really cool to like see that car in print. That was, I mean, I found that on Craigslist behind a barn in Vermont in the middle of the woods, you know, and that thing was just in a dilapidated state. So it was really cool to see that car come together without rebuilding a ton of stuff. Didn't respray the car. It was really kind of an amazing car underneath all of its age. So anyway, we drove that car from New Hampshire to Los Angeles to its new owner, who also bought my Russian imported Zhiguli, my Lada that I had a couple years ago, that Josh from Revival actually photographed for issue 2 of the Revival Motoring magazine. So the same guy bought both those cars. We decided this time to drive the BMW to him in LA. So we did a series of TGC pop-up meets all the way across the country, successfully made the trip cross country, delivered the car, and flew to Seattle and picked up one of my dream cars, literally one of my dream cars. And we picked up a 1991 Japanese VG45, a long wheelbase Toyota Century. And then we proceeded to drive that 3,200 miles across America, all the way back to New Hampshire. And that car, That's got a 4-liter 5V EU Toyota V8 in it that was only put in the Century. So there's no parts available anywhere. It doesn't share hardly any parts with the 1UZ that we saw in the Lexuses here. And so, yeah, I didn't know what to expect when we hit the road with that. We checked belt life. We put tires on it, checked all the fluids, and
Strapped in.
buckled up and hit the road. And so the trip out in the BMW, Kyron Burnt flew out from LA and joined us for the trip west. And then our buddy Mike Cashman from Boston flew into Seattle and did the trip home with us. And both ways we did pop-up TGC meets. And it was awesome to get a chance to see friends that we don't see that often, but also meet people that we've known on the internet or through Instagram for years. So that was awesome. That was what an amazing trip.
Yeah,
And
trip of a lifetime for sure.
yeah, I know you were able to cover a bunch of states that you hadn't been to before.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, I hadn't been to Montana before. That was my first time to Montana. I'd been to every state otherwise. Man, we covered 40
Most of them.
or 30. Yeah, high 30s. We covered like 38 states on that trip or something like that, cuz we went straight out 70 from Nashville and then headed straight down to Albuquerque and Phoenix from there. So if you guys aren't familiar with this trip we did, as I mentioned before, there's like 7 or 8 episodes on this YouTube channel of this trip. We documented it pretty heavily. We did TGC meets in Fredericksburg, Virginia, Nashville, Tennessee. Met up with a few friends in St. Louis, Missouri for dinner at one of my favorite root beer joints, Fitz Root Beer in St. Louis. Yeah, Corey and I don't drink, but we're root beer nerds. I'm probably the nerd of all nerd of the root beers. I've got like 100 bottles and a bottle collection on my wall out in my living room. But Fitz Root Beer is based out of St. Louis, and it's one of my favorite root beers. And they have a restaurant, so we were able to eat dinner there, and it was really cool to hit that spot. Then we stayed in Kansas City. Then we did a meet in Denver, Colorado, Phoenix, Arizona, and then LA. And then once we get to Seattle and picked the car up, we did one in Seattle, Billings, Montana, Omaha, Nebraska with Fred White from 1320. That was an awesome meet. That was one of the best meets.
That was one of the biggest.
That was like 50
meets.
people or something crazy. Fredericksburg,
And we
Virginia
were
was
2
big.
hours late to that.
Oh my gosh. So we go into detail on this trip on the Revival Motoring podcast. So that's like an hour-long talk in itself. So you guys can check Josh's Revival podcast out to hear more about that trip. But from Billings, Montana to Omaha, Nebraska was one of the longest stretches we did. And we didn't have any troubles on the road. It just took us longer than we thought. And to be honest, I completely forgot to take into account the time zone change.
Yeah.
So we were doing a 7 to 9 p.m. 2-hour meet. And we were 2 hours late to our own 2-hour meet. We showed up at like 9.
Yeah.
And everyone was still there. Fred like ordered food for everybody and like had like pizza, and they had a fire going. They had marshmallows and s'mores. And it was so cool, man. So cool. And what a vicious trip, because we would drive 10 to 12 hours or more every day, get to a meet, supposed to be like 7 to 9, but it'd be 7 to 1 a.m. basically.
Yeah.
Hang out with everybody, crash for 2 hours, hit the road at 3 or 4 in the morning the next day. And we did that for 2 weeks straight.
Literally 2 hours every night.
So we were running on no sleep. And luckily we were eating good food though. We're not big like fast food eaters. We will if we have to be, but we were eating like good food too. We covered that on Josh's podcast too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that was an incredible trip, but that led up to me obviously sacrificing the BMW, but allowed me to purchase the Century, which is one of my dream cars. So that currently is Bag Riders. Bag Riders in Vermont, our buddies in Burlington, have stepped up to help out with that car, and I'm running all of the Airlift Performance builder kit, like the universal builder kits for the strut assemblies, and I got to cut the strut assemblies off, and there's some fabrication required to bag that car. But Dustin and Reno from AccuAir got a hold of me when I was out at SEMA and wanted to have a part in that car. So currently in transit, which I should hopefully see in the next couple of days, is their new E-Level Plus system, which they just unveiled at SEMA this year. So as we were talking before, neither of us have run their modular endo tank or any AccuAir management in our personal cars. So I've worked pretty exclusively with Airlift in all my other cars, and I cannot say enough good things about the 3P and the 3H system. Mm-hmm. I don't daily any of those cars in the winter, so I've never had to deal with like those management systems in like a deep freeze or cold environment.
I dailied mine in the winter and I had no issues.
That's right.
That was 3P in the Avant.
Yeah. What a great system. So I'm eager. I mean, installing the 3P and 3H system is so streamlined, and so I've done a handful of those now. So you can almost do it with your eyes closed at this point. So I'm sure the AccuAir setup's going to take a little bit, because it's a new system. And Dustin's been amazing. He said, just call me whenever you need any help or if you have any questions with setup or how everything goes. So I'm really excited to dive into that car. As we were talking before too, I'm so excited to see that car laid out on the ground. Man, being a long wheelbase, it's 20 feet long.
Yeah.
Thing's going to look so crazy laid out. But I guess we can move into, like projects. Cause you recently just sold your Hibiscus B5 Avant.
Yeah.
And that was, although you've had a handful of projects in the past, that was the first car that you bagged, right?
Yeah, it was. Yep. Put a couple engines in that car. We joked about that before too.
So we are regurgitating a lot of the stuff that we recorded in the first go, but yeah, that was, you had a pilot in that car that was not you, that was not used to driving a low car when it was static.
Yeah.
And drove over a manhole cover or something that was sticking up and blew the bottom end of that motor right clean out. And what's
driving.
This blinking light on the cluster? I think I'll keep driving.
That's all right.
Bad idea.
It happens to the best of us. But yeah, going back, there was a 2001 B5 Audi A4 Avant in Hibiscus red with the 1.8T manual. So it was rumored to be one of 200 to 300. So
cool. Yeah, that was a cool car.
It was a very cool car to own.
Yeah, our buddy Chris Saunders had that when he moved to England, put it up for sale. And I was actually surprised you bought it. I wasn't sure if you were going to buy that car or not. And I think he came down to Ace when you were there.
Yeah, because we had done a bunch of work on the car at Ace.
That's right.
So it was kind of just there. And he was like, I got to move to London. What am I going to do with this car? And I was like, no, you're going to leave it right here.
That's awesome. Yeah, that turned out to be a really cool car.
Yeah.
Even that. Then the second time you lost the motor, you freaking put a rod right to the side of the block on your way to my house.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Windowed it. Yep.
Yeah. I remember you calling me. You're like, so I'm like a half hour away and I'm not making it because this thing just, you hadn't even opened the hood. You're like, I heard a bang and there's a lot of smoke and oil and I'm not even going to look at the motor.
I pulled up the AAA app, got a tow coming. I didn't even get out of the car. I knew it was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catastrophic at that point.
Yeah.
But I came to pick you up anyway, and it was I can't remember what we did. We went up north with the Corvair or something. We went to like the Woodstock Brewery.
Yeah, I think
got lunch or something like that.
Yeah.
At that point, you needed it.
Yeah, I did.
Because you knew you were gonna have to put another motor in that poor car. But it was hooked up great by the time you had it all sorted out.
Yeah.
So what's next in your wheelhouse? You still have the Mark 1.
I still have a Mark 1 Rabbit.
Four-door Rabbit.
Four-door, yeah. That's on the back burner. That has been on the back burner for a couple of years. My 190E Mercedes ended up coming back to me.
Yeah, because you sold that not too long ago.
Yeah, I sold it,
back,
and it came back to me. So that is next. I got to put the head back on it, do some maintenance stuff, and then finish the air ride and find some wheels and
you've got the Commonwealth like control arms and bag kit for that car.
All adjustable control arms and bag mounts and
that'll be a sweet car. I mean, as you know, I had one.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was an 85. Yours is a 2.3, right?
It's a 2.3. Yeah, it's just a later. It's a 92.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that is a late one.
Yeah.
So mine was an 85, smoked silver, ox blood red interior, 5-speed manual, and that car was super fun. I bagged that car in 2013. So that was before anyone was really offering like a control arm kit.
Right.
So I had to modify the control arms and stuff. And it took a few goes to get it to sit where I wanted it to, which was laying it out, obviously. And without having a bag rubbing anywhere. Because there's not a lot of space up there, up front. And what I did was I ran the stock shocks up front and ran the R129 upper mounts. And that got me like 3 inches more travel on my shock. And with the Airhouse 2 bag up front, I was able to lay the subframe out in the front. And then most of you guys that have messed with 190s or W124s know that like Ford Ranger shocks. And I ran Saab 90 shocks in the back and was able to get the back of the car laid flat out too.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be cool. Yeah, I know you're trying to sell that 190 in its current state, but as we were saying off air, I think getting that thing running and bagging it and getting a set of wheels for it, I think will be really, it'll sell faster and you'll be able to get more for
it.
Someone will want it more.
And like I said, I had said before, I just want to finish the project and finish the vision.
Yep. Yeah, I think that'd be a cool car. They're such a rad looking car anyway. Yeah, so 190 next. The rabbit lies in wait.
Yeah, we got big plans for that. So.
That'll be really cool. Yeah. That rabbit's if you follow through and that comes to fruition, we're gonna chop that thing up pretty good.
Yeah,
and that'll be a cool project. And I mean, for me, it's the Century right now. Century's next on deck. We'll get into some of the questions that people have submitted. I read through those earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we went through them all in the last time we recorded this an hour ago, but we'll go through some of those because those will, expanding on some of those questions will basically cover what I had for notes to talk about anyway. So this episode will ultimately be like a Q&A because I decided that since this is the first episode and didn't really have like a straight up agenda for this episode, we were just going to like talk and hang out and talk about 2020 and our travel plans, which also some of the questions ask about some of the shows we want to attend this year. Because, for those who don't know, we travel to Europe every year. Corey started traveling overseas with me 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But for the last 5 to 6 years, I've been traveling over to Europe every year for Players Classic. We've done Wörthersee. We did a tour through Germany last year. We drove from England down to Austria for Wörthersee with some friends. We'll talk about that a little bit more too. But basically talking about 2020 in general. But a lot of those questions cover all that. Ocean City. Basically what we can do is we can get into some of the questions, but I'll roll down through some of the dates in like 2020 trips that we want to do. So we already talked about. Did we talk about Riverside? I can't remember what we're talking about now and what we talked about an hour ago.
We touched on Riverside going down in March.
Yep. So and having Mason and Nick on the podcast. So March 14th, Riverside in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Amazing show. It's in the Pavilion in Chattanooga. It's got this real like industrial like brick and mortar vibe to it. No awards, no trophies. It's like a giant car meet with vendors and food trucks. Just the way kind of like Nikolai does Simply Clean with no awards. It's like a big car meet. Everybody hangs out. That's a super, super fun show. It's normally the weekend of my birthday. So I've flown down the last like 3 years to just hang out with everybody and be down there. Cause up here we're still buried in salt and snow in March, and forget about trying to take a car down there. Cause if you're driving or putting it on an enclosed or on an open trailer, you still got to get out of the Northeast to get down there. So, and it's like a 20-hour drive. So what I've done is, this is also in some of the episodes on YouTube. I trailered my Corvair on a U-Haul trailer down to Georgia by way of Chattanooga in November on my way to Simply Clean, which is a show I usually fly down to every November as well. But this time with the Corvair, and was picking up a 24-foot enclosed car trailer that I spec'd out and had built, and ultimately, set the U-Haul trailer back to U-Haul in Georgia, loaded up the car in the enclosed trailer, and headed to Simply Clean. And then on the way back, drove home with Mason and everybody. I stayed a week extra for Turkey Rod Run down there, which is a show I've always wanted to stay for. But then left the whole rig in Chattanooga and flew home specifically so we could go back in March and have the Corvair there. We're going to rent a U-Haul van and drive the whole TGC booth setup all the way down there because Mason was really kind of convincing me to vend with TGC and kind of be more of an official part of the show. So although I don't vend with TGC a lot, I'm really excited to be down there with the whole booth set up. We got Jose Flores from Chicago who's coming all the way out with his W116. And super excited to be down there with the Corvair and all that. So that's next. Man, after that, we might be gearing up for Wörthersee. We did a TGC meet at Wörthersee 2 years ago. We missed last year, but would love to be there. Our buddy Andy from Germany owns XS Car Night, and he puts on a really cool show there as well. So we'd have to do a pop-up meet in Austria for Wörthersee again. The one we did before was awesome. It has a huge turnout. Mm-hmm. I made some like 2018 Euro Tour, 2018 Governor's Club key rings that we sold. And just a beautiful place on earth.
That whole trip. Yeah. We could talk for hours about that trip. But.
Yeah. So hopefully that one will come together, but really trying to get to Racism in Poland this year, which I think they're rebranding. I think Adrian's rebranding that into Ultra Race.
Yeah.
Which is a good idea. I totally get the like language barrier and the translation. Right. It's a race, RACE-ism, not like the racism that everybody's, familiar with outside of the automotive world. So Yeah, so I think they're rebranding that into Ultra Race, but we're planning on being there. That's the weekend after Players Classic, which you attended with me last year.
Yes.
It's your first time there. Goodwood Motor Circuit.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, how did it feel being there for the first time?
It was an amazing feeling. Yeah. I mean, the amount of motorsports history that happened there, and just being able to be there for the show and seeing cars go around the track and
Pretty
just
incredible
feeling
place.
the atmosphere. Yeah, it was incredible.
I mean, just the fact that Sterling Moss like raced
Right.
and like hung out in the VIP booth where we were, with Jay and Carl and those guys.
Mhm.
It's just pretty incredible. The photos they have on the wall in the VIP room of like Sterling Moss on the grid. Yeah, it's so crazy.
Right.
The amount of automotive motorsport history that is there. So it's a really cool place to have a show. If you're familiar with motorsport, I mean, they fill the paddocks with all the show cars and stuff, and it's really cool. So we're gonna, in a perfect world, we'll get Worthersy done. We'll get the Players Classic, and then from the UK over to Poland for Racism or Ultra Race the weekend after. And I know you want to try to go too, but I'm going to Russia.
Yeah.
Russia's happening.
Yeah, I'd like to try to make it happen.
Yeah, this is the year. Every year, I say I want to go to Russia anyway to just see the country, visit friends that we have in Moscow or St. Petersburg, one of the two. And the ILB Drivers Club boys from Ireland go to Grounded every year, which is in Sochi.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing them over there every year, I'm like, I got to make it happen. So this year, that's number one. And I know we'll cover that a little bit in some of the questions some people have asked, like what shows we're planning on attending. Grounded in Sochi, Russia is one of them. I'm going to make that one happen. And that's July.
Mm-hmm.
Right after that is Wolfsgart in Burlington, Vermont. I'm not sure if I'm going to still be in Russia. We talked about that a little bit. If you go to Russia, it's like, you got to spend a couple weeks there, I would think, to like really kind of get to Sochi, be there for the show, hang out in Moscow, and get a chance to do some non-automotive stuff as well. And then, so if we're back for Wolfsgart, that's, we've been going there for the last 10 years. And I think Syracuse Nationals is like in June sometime. I think that might be disrupted. That was my first time last year going to Syracuse Nationals with the Corvair. That was an amazing show. And August is always kind of a quiet month. It's always in preparation. August and September is always in preparation for Ocean City, Maryland.
Yep.
Which is a no-brainer every single year. We do a TGC meet there in Ocean City. And it's just gotten bigger and bigger every year and has stayed the same as far as like morale.
Yep.
No burnouts. Everybody's respectful. Everybody picks up after themselves. And I couldn't be more blessed or grateful for the caliber of people that come out to that meet and just act like normal human beings.
Yeah,
and just behave themselves. And I'm so thankful that that's kind of become its own thing on its own accord. I don't have to like sit there and like babysit and be like, listen, guys, like we want this to be. It's like everybody just respects each other, and so that's cool. That's something I look forward to every year.
Mm-hmm.
As we were saying before too, it's like that's like, even though traveling to Europe and stuff has been, I spent time in Australia 2 years ago too. I mean, that's like incredible, like lifelong dream trips, but I think Ocean City, Maryland's like my favorite week.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's like my favorite vacation of the year. For some reason, it's like I get a chance to shut my brain off and just cruise and eat seafood and hang out with friends, and the whole keyring thing is amazing too. So every year for the TGC meet, I make a year specific keyring that we sell at the TGC meet or just throughout the week in general. And it's become this whole collect them all thing because I put the specific year on it, and every year I make it in a different medium, like wood or leather or acrylic last year. And everybody tries to collect them all. And it's so hilarious being like on the strip at a red light and kids are running up to the car being like, you got key rings? And this year I was literally throwing key rings in people's open windows cruising, and they were Venmoing me. Like it's hilarious. I love it so much. It's so much fun. So I'm really looking forward to this year. We'll be there in the Century. Hopefully you'll be there in a project of your own as well. If not, you can just drive me around in the Century.
Exactly. That's always a good plan.
Because black and white, black suit. And tinted windows, procession flags.
Yeah. The owner of a Century never drives it. So.
That's right, especially a long wheelbase.
Yeah.
So I do love driving that car, but I will not have any qualms with sitting in the back seat with the massaging, reclining rear seats going.
Yeah.
So, so getting that going. And what's after that? I mean, First Class Fitment's done now.
I know.
Last one last year.
Bummer.
Staggered's done now, which was in Massachusetts. Mike Lynch put that on. And yeah, I think after that, it's Simply Clean. It's SEMA first, and we got some things on the burner for SEMA. With any luck, we'll have a car out at SEMA this upcoming year too. That has yet to be determined,
Right.
and that it's going to require a ton of work. So that might hinder some of the travel plans financially for me. I might be diving down a rabbit hole to get something out to SEMA, but there's always next year. Yeah, and then possible moves
Yes.
after that. So that we'll get into that with the Q&A as well, because we got some of the answers will involve what we want to go or where we want to go with that as well. So I'll just get into the Q&A stuff. I feel like, you know what I didn't do this second time around? I didn't keep track of the time, so I have no idea
Okay.
where we're at for time. And what did I say before we started recording this?
That you were gonna do that.
Yeah. Listen, guys, everyone.
Episode 1.
This is
Top
episode 1, version 2. This is gonna be rough. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't have any idea what I'm doing. I've been a guest on a few podcasts, and I'm not responsible for keeping that going.
Right.
I just sit there
answer
and
the questions.
they talk, and I'm like, hey, and I'll rabbit hole all day long, and I'm a chatterbox as it is. But being the host of one is probably not a good idea, because I'm just gonna like run off the rails, and next thing you know, we're talking about like how to bake a cake or something. I don't know. This is gonna be a very bizarre podcast. So I apologize for the wandering. I have no idea how long this podcast is going to be. And as we go, I'm going to fall into a rhythm. I'm sure the podcast will fall into its own rhythm, and we'll figure this out as we go.
Yeah, as with anything.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into some Q&A, because I know last time we ended up rolling for like an hour, and that's more than enough for episode 1, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I put out an Instagram story. Hit us up on Instagram. We'll post this again at the end of the podcast, and I'll put it on the video so you guys can see the handles. But at John Ludwick, JOHN _LUDWICK, and Limitless Corey.
Limitless_Corey, COREY.
That's right.
Yep.
And so we mostly post an automotive stuff. So let's get into some of these questions. Now, being episode 1 and not really having an agenda for this podcast, or like a direction I really wanted to go specifically, or, you know, any sort of direction at all, I'm going to go through all the questions. I think from here on out, I'll probably end up just selecting some of the best ones. And I did kind of read through some of these already, but I think I'm going to go through them all. We'll spend some time and make sure we share everybody's question. With the exception of a few.
Yes.
Like Alex's.
Yeah.
My buddy Alex Bermudez. Alex, you know we can't ask that on the podcast.
And we joked about this before, but you already know the answer to that, Alex.
Yeah. So these aren't in chronological order. I kind of wish they were, because they actually got like really good as they went on. But we'll start at the beginning. At the beginning of the list. So we've got Paul Magdalenos. Asks, have you thought about doing a 60s big body American build, a Continental, Imperial, Cadillac, etc.? Oddly enough, I have been looking for, here and there over the last few years, a mid-60s Chrysler Imperial Crown. So it's funny he mentioned an Imperial in there.
Yeah.
That is one of the most beautiful American cars as far as like elegance goes. I love an old Cadillac and a Lincoln Continental. I mean, who doesn't love a mid-60s Continental with, suicide rear doors? But man, an Imperial Crown. I'd love to build one of those and kind of put like a Japanese kind of style on it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reminds me of the Century, like an old Century. And what were we talking about when we first went live? That 4-door Thunderbird.
Yeah, 1 year only. I mean, I saw it in the junkyard of Thunderbird, and it had 4 doors, and the rear doors are suicide, which I'd never seen before, so I had to do some research.
Me neither. Yeah, that
1 year, 1970 only, and it was, what was it called?
A Landau?
Yes, Landau. T-Bird Landau, 4-door.
What an incredible looking car. I never knew. I consider myself an automotive enthusiast in like all brands, in like all decades.
Right.
Never knew they made a 4-door Thunderbird with suicide rear doors.
Exactly.
Coolest
so
thing
now
ever.
the interest is peaked, and I need to find out if that car is acquirable.
Yes. Exactly. So yes,
There's another one.
I've thought about big body American cars, and there's actually a lot. I'd love to do an '80s Lincoln Town Car.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about that.
Yep.
My uncle had one when I was a kid, and I've just always kind of been a fan of that body style. So moving on, the unnamed, the _unnamed_. What drew you in, or what do you like most about rat rod style, or just patina on cars in general? That one's pretty easy because character.
Yeah.
I think in one word, like cars with patina, real patina, tell a story that no other car can tell. You know, like my Corvair that sat for 40 plus years in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, tells a completely different story aesthetically than my 700 did, because that BMW sat in the woods for 30 some odd years and the Corvair sat out in the open for 40 years. So I think cars with patina, and this, I mean, people can be into patinaed cars and people can not be into it and would rather see things shined up and shiny, which I like too. But I love the preservation aspect of old rusty cars. Getting them running and driving, mechanically sound, and the aesthetics. Nature's already provided you with like an incredible painting aesthetically.
It holds the story.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what draws me in, I think, is the individualism of each car, because no two cars look the same.
Exactly.
That have that type of wear and tear on them. CB92 says, hey, I would like to know roughly, how did you get into the business side of TGC and found the niche? Oddly enough, it found me. I don't view TGC as a business. I've never spent time vending with TGC. It's never been about like generating money with TGC. I was afraid it would turn into something that I didn't want it to turn into if I was chasing money with it. It literally just started as a group of friends, and we were kind of, I don't know, turning our noses up to like those like windshield banner crews that were starting to really kind of come out of the woodwork in like 2011-ish, something like that. So we all had like old Mercedes and old BMWs, and we jokingly started the Governor's Club as like the country club, yacht club,
executive.
Like, yeah, members only club type thing. And the more stickers and shirts we made for ourselves, the more people were intrigued about it, and that exclusivity aspect kind of gained more interest. And so then I started selling stickers and shirts, and now it's just kind of is what it is. And I like that. It'd be cool to like, be vending across America and across Europe and actually have it be my income. But I never really got into the business side of TGC. And I kind of like that because it's gotten its own momentum and kind of carried itself. Das Ginger, my buddy Ricky Grenell from Belmont, New Hampshire. Lives about a half hour from me. He says, how long before you get the heck out of this winter weather and don't look back? Ricky, my man, you already know that I've got the gears turning, the wheels in motion.
Yes.
Speaking about Chattanooga, Tennessee and Riverside, I'm planning on moving to Chattanooga, Tennessee. I haven't been blowing smoke about it, but I haven't really been trying to keep it a secret either. But I lived in Nashville in 2012. I really liked the area. Nashville's a little too busy for me, but Chattanooga's just been, I don't know, it's spoken to me. I love that area. I love the climate. I love the people. I love the housing like cost.
Yeah.
That's amazing down there. So how long before we get out of here? Man, I'm hoping by the end of 2020.
Yep.
And I'm slowly convincing, I don't think slowly. I've almost convinced Corey to do it.
I've been on board since day one.
Yeah.
I can't do winters anymore either.
It's tough. It's tough.
Like we were talking about before, being car guys and having to put away your passion for 6 months out of the year is just, it takes too much out of you.
It's tough. Yeah. And like I said, it's like when you tally it up that way, you know, here in New Hampshire, it's like I store my cars from November 1st to May 1st on average every year. And that's 6 months. So it's like this passion that we want to partake in, and like even just to cruise to go get coffee or something, that's all put on hold half of the year. And I just don't want to do that anymore. I want to be somewhere warmer. Yes, the Northeast allows you to like take a forced build season,
right?
You know, so I get that, and that's great when you can utilize that. But even still, you're buried in the garage and you can't even like test drive your project. You got to wait till spring. And I don't like driving my cars in the salt either. So I'm real stingy about that. I wait until we get like some warm weather and like 3 or 4 days worth of rain in a row. So it washes the roads off and there's no salt. So yeah, Ricky, end of the year, man, I'm hoping. And that's going to take a toll on where we go and what we do in 2020. Because that's going to be a financial hit as well. You know, moving everything. I got so much stuff. I got like 5 cars we got to move, and it just my laser shop, you know, the night laser shop, my laser machine, and all my tooling there, and my recording studio, just my entire life in general, and all of its baggage. Yeah. So we're working on that. When we go down for Riverside in March, we're going to be down there for a couple weeks, and we're going to just kind of give Corey the lay of the land. He hasn't been to Chattanooga before, so we're going to spend a solid week before the show just kind of hanging out in that area and kind of window shopping, like shop spaces, houses, etc.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Our buddy Mike Milligan, Millie Mix 86. Let me see. He asked 2 questions. He says, "What car will you drive the most this year?" That's always such a toss-up because I like driving. I say all the cars. There's really only 3 cars at the moment that are like weekender cars, but I love driving the Corvair. I drive that thing everywhere.
Yeah.
Around town, running errands. I'll take that thing for an hour drive out of town easily, any day. Fair weather, obviously. I don't like driving anything in the rain if I can help it. The Century, I'm going to spend a lot of time driving the Century this year.
Yeah.
Once that thing's, the suspension's done and wheels are done and all that. But that's a car you get driven in, so I'm just going to have you take care of that.
Yeah, you know I'm down.
As always. So, yeah, I don't know. What about you? What do you think? Well, I mean, yeah, I guess at the moment you're driving that sweet Toyota Tacoma. Yeah. That thing is sweet, though.
Yeah, no.
It's a manual.
It drives great. Manual, yep. 4-cylinder. Good on gas.
Maybe the 190 for a little bit.
The 190 for a little bit, and then, yeah. I haven't touched my Rabbit in probably 4 years, so
gotta get that thing going.
Yeah, really like to get that done.
We gonna make sure make sure we don't have any of the technical issues we had on the last one. So the other question Mike asked was, what car do you regret selling the most? And I know I touched on this on our Rough Draft podcast there. Probably, I wouldn't call it regret, because every car I've sold, I've been lucky enough to have made money on. I haven't taken a bath on any of my project cars. So each car's allowed me to move into something else that I felt lucky to own. Mm-hmm. But my E23, the 7 Series, or my 1960 Mercedes W111, I had a Fintail that I really, really loved. It was the first car I ever put on air suspension too. And yeah, that was, and those were both magazine cars. Mercedes Enthusiast magazine featured that car in July of 2013 in that issue. And so to see that car in print as well as the 7 Series in print were both kind of milestones for me. I mean, it's something pretty crazy, especially this day and age where print is just barely hanging on.
Right.
It's really cool to see your car in print, especially as a kid flipping through my father's hot rod magazines and stuff, and to think, man, it'd be so crazy to have a car in an automotive magazine. Probably one of those two. And let's see, moving on. Crya, Cryea, Crya asks, money no object, dream build. Well, I think it's been done before, in the 60s even, throughout the 70s. I mean, we see people starting to do them now, but mine would be a W194 or the 300 SL going.
Yep.
But an outlaw build of one. Mm-hmm. But original drivetrain. That slant, straight 6, the way they angled that motor in the engine bay. I mean, I got a chance to sit in one once, and you're almost straddling the gearbox. It's an incredible car. I guess you're not straddling the gearbox in the normal 300 SL, but the the 300 SLR that they only made like two of had that crazy offset like gearbox. And yeah, one of those cars like pulled out of a barn, as we talked about before, like patina.
Yes.
And like not modern drivetrain, but like the original drivetrain, but like, you know, restored.
Right.
And slammed on the ground on like wide black steelies and just a mountain carver. That's it. That's a money no object.
Yep.
Because that's a 7-figure car running and driving anyway.
Right.
So that's a car that I'll probably never get a chance to own. So that's mine. And there's so many I could talk all day long about money no object builds.
Yeah, it's hard to pick one.
I don't know. Sure. What do you think? This is one that you could answer too. If you can like, pick one off the top of your head.
I mean, I think one of my top dream cars is Lancia Delta Evolution 2.
Yeah.
But I would buy it and I wouldn't have to do anything to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'd take a year off of life and I'd hand build like a Porsche 906 or 907, like Le Mans car.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just,
money no object.
Money no object.
Delta's a good answer. Delta's a good answer.
Yeah. I love everything about it.
Oh yeah, man, those cars are beautiful. Oh, you know what? I need to say one more. It wouldn't be a build. Money no object. Evolution 2 190.
Yes, absolutely.
That's it.
Anything that has evolution in it, I think.
True. Because that was gonna be. I wanted to build my 190, my 5-speed 190, into a tribute Evo 2, and go through Support and Snack in Bangkok. Hedgehog Motorsports builds a really, really, really good tribute like body kit or a full kit Evo kit for those cars. Moving on. Frangione, FRANGIONE _ What year Beetle Pan is under the 700? So those of you who don't know, my 1960 German imported BMW 700 Coupe Sport is a project that my dad and I just finished over last winter. And we built a full tubular chassis inside the body. It sat in the woods for years, and the whole floor had rotted out. The car was in a bad, bad way. There were trees growing up through it. If you go to my Instagram, there's actually a highlight story of the entire build. It's just titled 700. You get a chance to see a lot of what we did in there. We have a solid 1,000 hours into that project in like 3 months. You know, we built that car basically from January to March. And it's a 68, I think. Yeah, it's late 68. It was the year that they went from the swing arm kingpin pan to the IRS ball joint pan.
Yes.
And it's got an H motor in it, 1500 single port, I believe. I'm new to the Volkswagen air-cooled game, so I'm learning everything as I go with that car. But yeah, it's a 68. And there's a whole bunch of these questions, so we'll keep them going. We'll move right along. Let's see. Mason Gavin. This is not a question. This is a statement. And he knows. And the statement is, Corey isn't ready for Oakwood Cafe's Meat and Two. And you darn tootin', Mason. Because there's a cafe in Dalton, Georgia, 40 minutes south of Chattanooga, that's called Oakwood Cafe. And it is beyond words incredible. So if anyone's traveling up or down I-75 through Dalton, south of Chattanooga, stop and treat yourself to Oakwood Cafe, because you will not be disappointed. I want to move to Chattanooga because of Oakwood Cafe.
Right.
Like that's it. So Mason's correct there. Ryan Hump 11, Dream Tow Rig. Yeah, well, currently building it, to be honest. And I know a lot of you guys that know me know about that project. And that project is a 1952 Chevrolet cabover 5-window. So that is within the 47 to 53 generation cabover, and pickup trucks, which shared the same generation as a split windscreen. And the 5-window cab had the corner glass windows in the cab. And what we've done, my father and I are working on that project together, and we've put the cab down over a modern Dodge long wheelbase 2-wheel drive dually chassis. It's got a 12-valve P-pump Cummins in it with an NV4500 5-speed manual gearbox behind it. We've bagged it. We still have some suspension work to do. We still need to build the rear. But we've got a lot of work into the front end. We got a custom drop axle that we built from scratch, basically drop steering assembly so the frame can, lay down. We didn't go to an IFS front end or anything. We kept the straight axle, but we had to build a custom steering column, custom pedal cluster that comes up to the floor like the original cluster did. I've utilized the factory 52 pedals, like the factory metal 52 pedals. I'm going to keep it a kickstart. So basically you turn the key on and you like kick down on a switch that connected power or ground to the starter to start it. So I'm going to utilize all that stuff so the truck still feels 52. So that's my dream. That's literally my dream tow rig. That's a truck that I've wanted since I was a kid, specifically with a Cummins power plant, laid out. It's patinaed, obviously. The truck's been worn to death. You know, it's had a brush paint job and it's all kind of fading away. So that truck laid out with turned down 22-inch Alcoas, mirrors finished with the Corvair sitting on the back of it.
Right.
That's the dream tow rig.
Yep.
But to expand on that, as of this morning, Mason in Chattanooga helped facilitate the purchasing of one of my actual dream tow rig pickup trucks.
Yep.
So I'm going to be sharing some photos of that on my Instagram here pretty soon. My 3/4 ton Chevy, I've got an OBS GMT 400, single cab, long box, 2-wheel drive, 8-lug Chevy that is one of the best trucks I've ever owned. And that thing has hauled my cars around forever. And that 24-foot enclosed trailer I bought on the way down to Simply Clean is just about its limit.
Max capacity.
Yeah. I mean, I can cruise 70, 75 on the highway with that thing, but it's always on the verge of kicking down, and it's got 220,000 miles on it. And it's just tired. It's pulling its weight well, but I just wanted something 1 ton. I wanted something diesel. I wanted something manual. I wanted to drive like a truck. So I was able to find a Southern rust-free quad cab dually diesel and a manual that I'll share some photos of soon. I'm so excited. Like I'm the guy, and I was trying to sell my truck down there to basically fund buying another truck. And Mason, of all people, in the middle of this whole deal was like, hey, so before I go look at this truck tomorrow, did you ask him if you like wanted your truck in trade?
Yeah.
And this guy had stated that he didn't want to drive a manual anymore because he's got a bad knee. He wanted an automatic. And that's what my Chevy is. So I pitched it to him. Long story short, the guy wanted my truck. We worked out a sweet deal. I mean, a deal that I never even would have imagined coming together. So I'm on cloud 9 right now because I just, I can't wait. So when we go to Chattanooga, part of the time before the show is going to be kind of going through this truck, maintaining it a bit. We're gonna do a heavy vlog on that as well, getting that thing ready to haul my Corvair in my enclosed trailer all the way back to New Hampshire. So dream tow rigs. I officially own 2 of my dream tow rigs. One's far from being finished, but we'll get to that. Moving on. I can't expand on all these this far. We'll be here for 4 hours. JN Meter, not a question, but maybe a recommendation. Build your cab over to be a mobile podcast unit. Yep, that'd be awesome too. I think it's ultimately going to stay a car hauler, but I'd love to have that thing be a mobile podcast unit, a pop-up shop, some sort of like walk-in, like the creme de la creme bus that's bagged in Europe, and it's like a full-blown walk-in shop. That'd be really cool. It's going to stay a car hauler, I think, though. That was the plan all along. Let me see. Relem Nivek says, if you could have either your Mercedes 190 or the W111 Fintail back, which would you bring home? I'd probably bring the Fintail home. Yeah, I'd bring the Fintail home. That there's something about sitting in an early 60s Mercedes with that big ivory steering wheel. It was a 4-speed on the column, looking out over that long bonnet with the hood mascot, that 3-pointed star. That was a Hydrac car too. I know we talked about that earlier.
We did,
that was basically Mercedes version of an auto stick. It didn't have a foot clutch. It was a 4-speed gearbox on the column. You push the shifter in, which made a whole bunch of magic happen under the hood, like 1950s magic. And
but decades ahead of the Volkswagen auto stick.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was a real crazy car.
Yeah.
I'd take that car back out of them all. And Dylan Keener, TDs. TDs. First of all, says another place to send questions to. I like it. TDs is a frequent on the Revival Motoring podcast. He's always bringing questions in, and I know him personally. He's from Florida. Great dude. He says, do you miss Florida? And I lived in Orlando in 2009 for a bit. I don't really miss Florida, no. But you're asking me in January, coming from New Hampshire. So yeah, I miss Florida at the moment. I would give anything for 70 to 80 degree weather or 50 degree weather. Give me some 50 degree weather. He asked a few questions. Next one is, what was your favorite job besides your current one? that one's an easy one if you want to call it a job. But I rode freestyle BMX professionally for 7 or 8 years or so through my 20s. And that was legitimately a dream job.
Mm-hmm.
Dream job. I made barely enough to pay my bills. And, but as a late teenager, early 20-year-old, that was, man, what a dream that was. I'd do it all again, even with all the injuries I've sustained and the ongoing battles physically I have because of injuries I've sustained. That was my favorite job by far. I mean, man, if you'd told me when I was in high school that I'd get paid to travel and ride my bike, that would have just been absurd. So yeah, and we have more episodes on the YouTube channel of us riding too. We've been riding a lot lately. So, something I'm cautiously continuing because I can't afford. I'm just I can't get hurt anymore. I hate getting hurt. Last question he asked is actually a bit of a serious one. Says, how do you juggle everything that you have going on? And I would jokingly say I don't. Like, I don't juggle it. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I bite off more than I can chew, or I have too many irons in the fire. Between night laser, which is my actual job, the laser engraving, that's my focal point because that's what's keeping the lights on and food on my table. That I thought for sure that thing would have moved to the other memory card. Do you think it did? Anyone who's listening on iTunes or Spotify, I'm also video recording this for YouTube, and I've got 2 memory cards, and unfortunately they're not real big ones because I'm a rookie at this. So
underestimated.
Yeah, I'm gonna check to see if that thing's still recording. What was your favorite job? Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I think this is where we're at when it stopped before.
We're an hour in.
Yep. Yeah, I've been an automotive technician for about 12 years. But I think one of my favorite places that I've worked has been Ace Performance down in Tewksbury, Mass. Just the variety of race cars and in-house dyno, and the crew of people at Ace was amazing.
You guys built some pretty sweet stuff there.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
What do you think was your favorite car that you worked on there?
Oh man, it's hard to. The amount of the variety of cars, I think, was what I liked the most. We did a lot of performance street builds, and then we had a lot of track-specific cars. We were also a Ariel Atom reseller and repair shop. So we saw a lot of Ariels, which is an amazing car if you know anything about the Ariel. Yeah.
I've never driven one of those. They aesthetically don't really do anything for me, but I think if I drove one or rode in one, it would change my outlook like forever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For those of you on YouTube, this is literally the first go with the camera, and I don't have a memory card long enough or large enough to record 4K video for an hour or more. Mm-hmm. And so I had 2 memory cards in both memory card slots, and it didn't switch from one to the other like I thought it was. So this first episode is literally us trying to figure this out. So there's been a skip in the video from one memory card to the other while I changed it out. And it got you to just talk about some projects to keep the audio going.
Yeah.
But we're rolling now. Like I said, this is episode 1, and I'm figuring all this stuff out as we go. So episode 2, we'll have larger memory cards, and we won't have this issue.
Yeah.
So we'll start flying through these questions. TD's was asking, how do you juggle everything that you have going on? And to answer that more seriously, it's because I don't think I do, because I feel like I do everything like half-assed or 50%. I feel like I bite off more than I can chew, and then I'm frustrated that I'm not giving my all, or that I feel like I'm giving my all into everything. As far as music is concerned, my music project, which I've been trying to finish, that's how we met, was through music.
Right. Forever ago.
Yeah. And I used to crank out, I feel like I could write an album and get it pressed and out like in like a week. And the Rising Sea, my current music project, which is luckily just my solo project, I've been working on for like 10 years and still don't have anything to really show for it. So that, between the car projects, the Governor's Club, I'd love to keep growing that, and Night Laser, the main income, the laser engraving. So it stresses me out. I think if I were to have a resolution for 2020, it would be to manage my time better and focus more and kind of move with purpose and passion.
Yeah. Getting
Purpose.
deep on us.
Yeah, to move with purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it stresses me out sometimes. I really wish I could do a better job at juggling that stuff and feel like I'm working harder at that stuff. So I have that in the back of my mind all the time. Del Sketchy says, "Can I drive up to New Hampshire and hang out with you and Corey?" Yes, you can.
Yeah, we're here.
For now. Yeah,
Yes,
we're here for
yes.
now. We're here through the summer. We'll see what happens in the fall. But yeah, totally. Broken Benz, Aiden from England,
Yep.
has a sweet 190 as well. Says, what media, Spotify or iTunes, are the podcasts going to be uploaded onto? Those two, actually. Those are the two that I think I'm going to be uploading the audio to, Spotify and iTunes for now. Unless I find out that like Stitcher and like SoundCloud and stuff are two other platforms that I should definitely be on. He also asked, what were the first set of skills you learned and then to build on, car related? My dad owned an automotive business for years, and he's always been a fabricator, custom exhaust, pipe bender and stuff. So I don't remember what the first set of skills were. I think the first set of skills were just to like learn overall automotive like theory,
Right.
I guess, like
Yep.
the car, how the car works. This is how you change a tire. This is how you change your oil. Just the basic stuff. I mean, and I think most people can attest to that. We've both since learned how to weld, and through night laser and working with the laser machine, I've been able to move that onto my dad's CNC plasma table. So that all has been able to, actually working on CAD, two-dimensional CAD design, and dealing with that too. So, but we learn new stuff every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you do, since you're in that field every day. I'm only in that field when I'm working on projects. So no, I can't really touch on what scale, but learning every day and super excited to do so. It's something, that's why I've got a passion in it. Robert Overhauser, 356 GT3R on Instagram, who's one of my best friends. That guy is just, what a wealth of knowledge. Guys, he owns a Porsche shop in Richmond, Virginia. He asks, what's the quickest way to the end? And
That's a very Robert question.
Robert knows the answer to that. It's walking out into traffic. Because he says at the end of a long week or a long day, he's like, I almost walked out into traffic today. Yeah. That's hilarious. Robeck002 says, when will the cab over become a priority? I know, man. I know it's been years, but I think this year is going to be when it at least becomes a priority to get it running and driving in the yard or whatever, because if I end up moving at the end of the year, I need that thing movable or else it'll never get done. So, and actually, T. Namrev asked the same question. He said, is 2020 the year of the COE? So it may not be the year that the COE gets done, but at least gets worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So
take the tarp off it.
I know. People ask if I've done anything to the cab over, and I'm like, well, I put a new tarp on it for this winter. Mark _Gamma, good friend of mine. He actually printed these, the latest run of TGC shirts. Oh yeah, the one that you're wearing too.
Yep.
He says, what inspired you to start TGC? Love the quality of the brand and your cars. Well, thank you, Mark. And as I touched on earlier, it kind of started as a joke to be like a refined group of young gentlemen.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what it's slowly become. So we kind of touched on that earlier. Let me see. My buddy BJ McCardle asked, what's your favorite weird and funny road trip story or any interesting animal encounters on the road? So I drove the Corvair when my father and I first finished it after it hadn't been on the road in 40 years. I drove that car from New Hampshire to Helen, Georgia for SOWO 2014 by myself by way of Nashville because I was dating a girl in Nashville at the time, which is not on the way to Georgia from New Hampshire. And I made the first 20-hour haul straight to Nashville. And I swear in the middle of the night at like 3 a.m. in Ohio, I hit an armadillo. Or a cinder block. Yeah. But I'm convinced it was an armadillo. I mean, I was tired. It was at night. And that thing destroyed the front end of the car. Just took the lip right off, dented the valance really badly. Nobody believes me. It was an armadillo. They're like, no, that was a
Yeah.
rock or a cinder block
He was visiting from Arizona.
or wherever they're from. Yeah. So that's pretty hilarious. I'm sure there's plenty of others. We could touch on more of those in other podcasts, but let me see. He asked a few, but I'll move on to some other people. Dylan Rodriguez asks, what are you looking forward to most this year for both of you? And I think traveling to new places and a potential move.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we can both kind of agree on that.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one to answer, I guess. Russia.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I'm mostly looking forward to going to Russia.
Yeah,
That's got me
Russia.
really excited. Yeah, and a possible move and possibly having a car at SEMA. And I'm not going to blow too much smoke about that because I don't know if that's going to come to fruition. Even on my end, that's a lot of pressure, and I don't know if I'm like ready to bite that much off. So, moving on. Alex's question. Alex Bermudez, we already talked about that. We're not going to touch on that, Alex. And let's see. Let me see. We're going to siphon through a few of these. Mark III Misfit, who came out to the Motoring Club meet in Los Angeles, the Governor's Club meet there, says, what are your thoughts on Crenshaw Classics? Also, such an honor to meet you when we came to LA. Hey, man, it was an honor to meet you and all your friends. Dude, thank you so much for coming out to that meet.
Absolutely.
I could tell that you guys were super stoked to like be there and like see the E23 and just hang out with us for the night. The honor's mine. The honor's mine. You guys came. We came to town. You guys came out and hung out with us, and you guys made my night. It was awesome. And Crenshaw Classics are awesome.
Yes. Very underrated wheel.
And you should put some on your Mark III. Let me see. What else we got? We've got Truls Venman. I think you're from Germany. I can't click on your profile from this archive of questions, but he asked, are you both going to be at Worthersy this year, and will you be there for the XS car night? We're hoping so.
Hopefully.
He also asked what the story is with your 190. We already kind of talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says there's not enough space to ask all the questions he wants to in this tiny little letterbox.
Yes.
Another question from iCam Adams asks, once the Century's finished, will the 52 cab over be on the burner? Yes, it will be. Luke Duville asks, Euro Fords, Sierra or Escort? Man, that's a hard one.
Oh, man.
Because if you know me well enough, you know that I absolutely love both of those cars. Euro Fords are probably my favorite series of cars. Sierra? Maybe. Because it's underrated. Everyone wants the Escort. I want the Escort. I mean, and I'm not just talking Mark V Escorts with the whale tail, but a Sierra Cosworth, like an RS 500.
Yeah.
Is a pretty incredible car.
Going back to Ace, we built a lot of Mark 1 and Mark 2 Escorts.
That's right.
We were actually working on one with a newer EcoBoost engine in it. And yeah, I mean,
that was a
Mark
cool
1 Escort
project.
is just, yeah.
Yep.
It's timeless.
I'm a huge fan of the Mark II Escorts too.
Mm-hmm.
I love a Mark II Escort. All the rear-wheel drive Escorts. We never got the rear-wheel drive Escorts here in the States, so it's really cool to see those things becoming more and more prominent. You see a lot of people with those now. This is actually a good question. Rick V-Dub asks, what do you consider a build? That's a good question because I personally don't like to use that word. I don't use that word with like any... I feel like that word is thrown around like it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right, I agree.
And I won't take a political stance on it, or I don't know what you'd call that. I don't want to take like a formal stance on what you should and should not call a build, because you see plenty of stuff on the internet saying like bags and wheels aren't a build. I agree. Like I agree, because other people who actually build cars set that bar.
Right.
So one could argue that like the Corvair was a build because we chopped the roof, we built our roof, we cut the windshield, we built an oven to heat form plexiglass for the rear window, we custom built all the suspension, we custom built tension rods, control arms from scratch, basically, like that. We built components on that car.
Right.
But then you see guys like Fat Fabs and these like insane shops, like Little Shop and all those guys that are building full custom chassis, and even guys that go even farther and custom build bodies, hand panel,
going
English
back to
wheel.
The Porsche 906 and 907s, people are replicating them now and just completely hand-built cars.
So to answer your question, that's what I consider a build.
Yeah.
Hand built everything. Chassis, body. Doesn't mean I won't use the word build. And if I do,
Right,
I'm
and-
looking at like that was like a build 2 years ago or whatever,
Right. And if, at least for me, if someone refers to their car as a build, I'm not gonna think
Call 'em
either
out.
way about it. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly, yeah.
that's your build, sure.
I'm not uptight about that word
No.
either. People are like, oh, check out my Mark IV Jetta build. Oh, that's a build. Like,
That's-
whatever.
Yeah, that you.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to call it that, you call it that. I'm not too uptight about it. I try to not use it that loosely, though. Just because I admire and aspire to be like some of those shops that are like
Right.
building insane stuff. And so I've got a long ways to go before I reach that status. So that's where I stand there. Deluxe low light Gia. So this William was his name. He came out to the Phoenix meet
Right. Yes.
in Arizona, our TGC Phoenix meet, and he had a static low light Gia that was unbelievable. This thing was laid out flat on the ground, flat, panned out, static, drove it there to the meet, which was at an In-N-Out Burger, by the way, which was amazing. He asks, any VW projects in the works?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure when it's going to be, on the burners, but I have recently acquired a South American Volkswagen that was not available here in the States. And that is a project that Corey and I have already kind of brainstormed and something that we're really excited to take on when the time's right. If we end up moving to Tennessee, it'll come later, probably with the Century and the cab over and stuff on the deck on my plate for the year. I don't think we'll get to that, especially if you weren't trying to get your 190 and Rabbit done.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a VW project in the works. If you count Corey's Mark I as well. But there's a South American Volkswagen that we currently have that I'm kind of excited about. So we'll see what happens there. Getting towards the end here. Let me see. Trey.e39 asks, best way to find unique cars, buying tips.
Trey works with us at Preservation Auto Works.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what's
That's
up,
funny.
Trey? His actual name's Trey
Yeah.
as well? Cool. I'm assuming he drives an E39?
He does, yes.
Of course he does. Best way to find unique cars or buying tips. Honestly, I think almost all the cars I've found have been on Craigslist. Now, I know Craigslist has recently changed their selling options where you have to like pay $5 to list
You
a
do,
car.
yeah.
So I know that's going to change significantly with like the rise of Facebook Marketplace. Obviously you've got eBay. I've never bought a car off eBay. I bought a car out of the Auto Hunter.
Dang.
I bought a 75, no, it was a 72, a 1972 Datsun 510, a four-door, non-running, rough shape, but I'm a nerd about the Datsun 510. So when I was like 18 or 19 years old, here in New Hampshire, or New England, we had a book that was like $1.50 or something, like a thick classifieds book called The Auto Hunter. And it's no longer, but it was huge when I was a kid. And I remember looking through those, long before I was 16, dreaming about buying cars out of there. And I feel incredibly lucky to have actually purchased a car that I called through a listing in the Auto Hunter, in a Datsun 510 of all cars. But Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace is definitely the place now. And that's where you'll find like swimming deals where people are trying to get rid of stuff like fast.
Yeah. And I feel, as you know, Trey, a lot of times it's in the people you know. Somebody will have some car somewhere that they don't know much about, and they know other people that are into cars, and they contact you, and it can go from there.
Yeah, exactly. Through conversation. Oh, so-and-so's got one of those.
Yeah, exactly.
And you call so-and-so and they're like, yeah, I want to sell it. So stuff like that is like, those are the coolest ones.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh yeah, in that building, I got this whatever car, and you go see it. Is this for sale? I'm like, yeah. And they give you a good price and you buy it. That kind of stuff is really cool. Yummy_Flaquito says, how is the transition from BMX to a full-time car guy? Nothing but respect. Well, first of all, thank you. The transition was natural because I've always been into cars. My dad has always been into cars. He's where I got it from. That typical story of my dad was into muscle cars, and so I got into cars. So I've got a pretty typical story about how I became an automotive enthusiast. So the transition was like kind of easy because I'd always been into cars. I just didn't have the time or money to really dive into cars the way I wanted to when I was riding BMX, because I was living off of a small salary, still a dream job. But the transition was basically getting a better full-time job and making more money to buy more cars that I could work on,
Right.
and et cetera, et cetera. And then buy and sell those cars to ultimately supplement income and slowly climb that like automotive entrepreneur ladder, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I hate using that word too. I see that word as like a build. You see everybody's bio on
I know.
Instagram like entrepreneur. It's like I see entrepreneurs like guys like Gary Vee or like guys that are making millions of dollars and they've like bought and sold big time companies. But I guess the mindset of an entrepreneur is where we're at too.
Right.
Of like finding something old and cheap and piecemealing it together and selling it for a premium and taking that premium and buying a more expensive pile of junk and piecemealing that together. So
yes.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the way I see that. So that's how I transitioned. Altered Intent asks plans for shows this year. Also, I hope to see you at some. I hope we get to run into you at some as well. We've kind of gone through the list of shows for 2020.
Yeah.
We could have done the Q&A first, and then we would have touched on everything that we wanted to talk about already.
That's all right.
The Swoops, my buddy Greg, your buddy Greg.
Yes.
Greg is a phenomenal fabricator. Previously or still based out of New York. The Swoops. No like commas or underscores or dots in his name. Just The Swoops. Go check him out. This guy. Phenomenal fabricator, does amazing work. Asks, since you got a shop in New Hampshire, are you actually planning to move to Tennessee? As I just stated, we should have read these first.
That's all right.
Yeah, Greg, I think we're planning on moving to Tennessee. A lot can happen in a year, though, so I don't know what's going to happen. I want to be as methodical as possible and make sure all my ducks are in a row if those doors should open. So yeah, I'm still planning on moving. I can't do the snowman. I don't know how you do it. I know you're married and have children, and that changes everything, but we're single with no kids, man.
Yeah.
We don't like the cold, so we're out of here. Yep. Maybe. As we do another podcast this time next year, we're still buried in snow. Heaven forbid.
Hopefully
not. Yeah. And one more, let me see. I think I scrolled past a couple. We'll tidy this up. We're an hour and a half in easily on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Elko MP Angel asks, what's the average budget between your cars? Well, I'll put it this way. I love the chase of something that's like cheap, affordable. All the stuff I like is cheap and affordable, though. I don't have I don't have the capital to be buying like $100,000 cars, but yeah, I like the chase of something affordable that is buildable, to use that word again, but to make your own, like a blank canvas. So if I were to, rather than talking actual numbers, budget in a non-monetary like image, I guess would be just like a cheap project that has a ton of potential visually.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The vision.
I like that. I mean, the Corvair pulled out of a grave, saved that from the crusher.
Right.
The 700, same deal. That was going to just rot into the ground. That thing had trees growing inside it. And those are not super expensive cars in those states.
Right.
So I like the thrill of the chase the most. And if you can save a bunch of money and spend very little of it, then that's amazing. And then when you get the thing finished into something rad that you think's rad, and somebody wants to pay you a ton of money for it, or what you think's a ton of money,
right.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. I think I might have skipped over some, but that's a good brunt of all the questions for episode 1. And this has been a learning process.
Sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because the audio is going to sound crazy when we went between video clips. The video on YouTube, I'm going to have to sort out and kind of splice together in post. Hopefully, episode 2, that'll more than likely be with Josh Garcia, will be far better streamlined audio-wise and video-wise on YouTube and iTunes and Spotify. But for basic overall where we're going to be putting this, I think iTunes, Spotify, for audio streaming, first off, might look into Stitcher and SoundCloud, but I think iTunes and Spotify to begin with, which is where you'll be hearing this, and YouTube as well for video. You can follow us on social media, mostly Instagram is where we're both the most active.
Yep.
Limitless Corey
Limitless_Corey, Corey.
And I'm John Ludwick, JOHN.LUDWICK. You can follow the Governors Club at just the Governors Club, spelled out. Night Laser with a Z, one word, is my laser engraving project, and the music project, which is the music you heard at the beginning of this podcast, which is written and recorded by me here in the studio, is The Rising Sea, with no underscores or anything like that. So just The Rising Sea. But man, this has been episode 1. It's been rough, I think, as far as like technical hurdles have gone. But episode 1's under the belt, man.
Yeah, it could have been way worse.
We got this thing under the belt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So more to critique on for episode 2. But thank you guys for listening. And I hope this becomes something you're excited to listen to. I think as this goes on, it may not be a weekly thing, but I'm going to try to like set a day of the week. Hopefully you guys are hearing this on Monday morning. So on your Monday morning commute to work, you can turn us on and listen to us talk about, man, whatever. You can listen to us bunny trail down the rabbit hole and talk about everything.
Yes.
But thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in episode 2. Bye-bye.
Bye.